Hello friends, welcome to the Angular 8 tutorial. In this tutorial, we will see how we use Observable with WebAPI, or we can say how we use Observable with HTTP request in Angular. In the previous tutorial, we have seen like what are the Observable and subscribe and what is the difference between the Observable and the promise. If you didn't watch that tutorial, I recommended you please go to the part 32 of this tutorial series and see that what is observable and HTTP request, because we are going to proceed with the observable and the subscribe. So before that, get the knowledge on this. So basically, like here what we will do, we will create a local web API kind of server, and we will insert the data in the that web API, and we will fetch data from that service. So it is basically used for the developer, like they want to test it to fetch data from the server and want to see that it is working properly or not. So basically Angular provide us a local web API. There we can create our service and we can test our data, and that is called in-memory web API in Angular. So basically here what we do, here we will see how to use in-memory web API module with Angular 8 to create a backend less application by mocking a REST API backend. So yeah, that as I explained, like in memory web API is basically create a kind of backend and kind of a REST API backend which we use to fetch data from the service. And Angular in memory web API facilitates the developer by providing a fake endpoint for faster and independent development. So basically it is for the developers to test their service, and this is very useful for Angular developer that don't have a backend ready yet. And we have to configure URL with a dummy data, like we have to create a one dummy data, and with that we have to configure the URL using the in-memory web API. And so before working with that, first what we have to install, we have to install in-memory web API in our machine. So that is the command for installing in memory web API. What is that? npm I angular -in -memory -web -api @ and this is the version like 0.5.3, and then save. So after putting this command, it installed web API in memory in our machine. So after installing this web API machine in our system, what is the next step? Next step, we have to create a one class. In that class, what we will do, like we need to create a class which will inherited from in-memory DB service. So we will create a one class which will be inherited from in-memory DB service, and after inheriting this, what we have to do, we have to define a create DB function method, and we have to take the dummy data, like we have to insert the dummy data inside this create DB. So we will understand all this process using an example in Visual Studio Code. So let's go to the Visual Studio Code first, and here we can see like I have a dummy like I have a application which does not have anything. So let's save it and see what it is showing on the browser. So we'll proceed with the further changes. So first, actually we don't have any changes, we have only one message called welcome to the .NET Office app. Now we are going to implement our dummy web API data, and we will fetch the data through service in our Visual Studio Code. So let's close this terminal first, go to this terminal, and first, as I explained, like first we have to install this command in our we have to run this command in our Visual Studio Code command line prompt, and need to install in memory web API. In my system already I have installed it, so I'm not going to do this run this command. So if you are going to create it first, so first run this command in your system, then proceed further. So now what we will do after this, first what we will do, we will create a one class, and that class will contain a properties or we can say kind of a interface which contain the properties which we are going to show to the user. So what I will do on the app, I will do the right click, because I am going to create a one class or we can say one TS file here, and I will give this file name as the student.ts. hit enter, it will create a one class, or we can say one file, and in this file what I will do, I will create a one interface. And what is that? Export. As I explained, export means it will be the public, we can access from other places. Export, and then interface we have to create, and we have to give the name of this interface. So I will give a student interface, and after this I will define the property which I am going to take. So I will take id, and this id will be the number type, or we can say like the integer type, anything. So I am going to take the number type, or here we will take difference, like I will take int 16 array, because I am not going to take much. And after that I am going to take another property, and that is name, and this will be the string type. And after this another is the gender, and it will be the string type. So these three property I am using in my system, that I will show on the web, and through that service we will show that data on the browser. So after declaring this property into the interface, now what I am going to do, I will going to create another class, like as I explained, like after installing, what we have to do, we have to create a one class, or we can say one file, that will inherited from in-memory DB service. In that in-memory DB service, what I will do, I will create a one function, create DB, and there we will insert our dummy data. So for that what I will do, I will create I'll close this first, and I will take another file, and this file name I will give as a student detail. So student details.ts. Here the, like in C# we used to create a class, then there we used to write like cs, here we write ts. So inside this ts file, what I will do, I will create the our that function create db. So before that, first what I will do, I will import our in memory web API. So it will come from Angular in memory web API. And what I am going to import, I am going to import in memory DB service. So that is the first step which we need to do. And after this, what we will do, we will create a one function export class, and here I am going to take student info, and this will be inherit from in memory DB service. It will inherit it from here, and inside this we will create our function create DB, and inside this we will give our dummy data. So I will take one variable called student std, I will take, and this will be data as a array type, because it's a multiple data, that's why it will be the array type. And inside this I will define like id, and here id will be the 1, name I will give as name1, and I will give the gender as male, comma. In similar way I will take another data, like this one I will make as a female. So here basically we are defining our dummy data inside this. Here I will give 3, 2, and after defining our dummy data, what I will do, I will return, and what I will return, I will return this std. So I will take that inside this, and std I will return. So basically as of now what we did, like we created a one class called student info, and that is inherited or implemented from in memory DB service, and inside there there is a function which we created for created DB. And what is created DB? Creates an in memory database basically, whose key are collection name and whose value are array of collection object to the return or update. So basically it return observable of the database because could not have to create it asynchronously. So that is the thing which we have done. So after this, now what we have to do, we have to create the services. Like in this services we are going to use it. So what we will do, first we will create the service. So for creating the service in our Angular 8, we have the command like ng service we have to give, and the service name we have to give, and what we will give like we will give student dot service. I will give like student service. This service name I will give. So it will create two files for us. One is the TS file and another is the specification file. So we are going to work with the service TS. So as I explained like in the previous tutorial also like when we create the service in our Angular, then it create the two file and we have to import the inject table. So once we give the command, it automatically create the inject table import from the core library. So here we have taken. Now the next thing what we have to do, we have to write our logic inside this student service. So for that what we have to do, first we have to take our dummy URL. So what I will do, I will take one dummy URL and I will give this URL like student URL, and I will give the URL name as API, and inside this we will give info. So that is the first thing which we need to do. And second step what we have to do, we have to take a one variable, and that type of that variable will be the HTTP client. So for that first we have to import the HTTP client. So for that import, and that we import from Angular common library. So Angular then common, and under this common we have the HTTP. So from there we will import our HTTP client. So that is the next step. Now what we have to do, in the constructor we have to take a one variable. The type of that variable will be the HTTP client, because we are going to communicate through HTTP. So private, and we have to take a one parameter, and I will take like client, and the type of this is HTTP client. Type of this is the HTTP client. Now next what we have to do, we have to create a one function which will communicate to our student details. Like here we have given the communicate the data. So here we will write get student from web API. So I have defined this function name like this, and this is the function basically. And what is the type and how we are going to take? We are going to take it using observable. So for taking like this to communicate with the web API data, we have to take it like observable. In the previous tutorial we have seen like how we work with the observable. So before proceeding with this, I recommended you go to that tutorial as well to understand it more. So that observable basically comes from the RxJS library. So we will import it first from RxJS. And what we are going to import? We are going to import observable, and here we are going to take observable, And the type of this observable, like we have to give some type to the observable. So I'm going to take this type, and what kind of type I'm going to take? I'm going to take type of this student interface, because it will return kind of data, it will manage in this way. So I'm going to take student interface data, and this will be like what kind of data it will be array type data, because it will be the multiple. And inside this we will define what it will, this function will return. This function will return this dot client dot, like HTTP client has many method like delete, get, post, and as many you can see like request. So we are going to get data from WebAPI, and what we are going to take, like we are going to take student interface kind of data, and that will be the array, and inside this dot student URL, and here it is giving because we didn't imported that file, so I'm going to import it. So that is the next step. Here what we have done, we created the service, and in this service we have given a one URL like API info. Then we have taken a one variable, the type of this variable is the HTTP client, and we created a one function called get student from WebAPI, and we are going to communicate with WebAPI using the observable, and type of this observable is the student interface array. And then we are going to get the data from this client, and using this student interface with this dot student URL. So that is the next step. Now next what we have to do, we have to give all these reference under this app.module.ts, like whatever we have used here. Like we have to give the reference of the our services and the HTTP client and other files. So how we will I'm going to give the reference. Like first I will take import and from student, and I will take like service, and what I will take, I will take student service data. And after this what we have to do, once we given the services, so as I explained before, we have to give this service under the provider. So here we have to take providers, and this will be the array type, and inside this we have to define it. That is the first step. Next what we have to do, we have to take in memory WebAPI import and from Angular in memory WebAPI. And what we are going to import, we are going to import in memory WebAPI module, and next is HTTP in memory WebAPI module. So these are the two modules we have imported, and once we import the modules, we have to give the reference under this. Inside this thing. So like before that what I will do, I will take all the reference, that is the first, and the next I will import our student, I will write it later. Before that I will take from student details, here we have given our all dummy data, and I will import student info. So that is the thing. Now next we have to import our HTTP client module. So I'll paste it, and here we have HTTP client and HTTP client module. Those are coming from HTTP library. So these all also we have to take under this module. So HTTP client module, and then we have to take in memory web API module dot for root, and we have to take our student info. Like through this in memory web API module, it is going to communicate to the student detail, and it will take our dummy data. Like here we have defined in this service, like it will communicate through this URL we have associated. Like basically this is the observable file. In the previous tutorial we have seen, it will through this it will communicate to our service and to our data. So that is the second step, like we have defined in the services and in app.module.ts. Now after all this, what we have to do, we have to go to the app.component.ts, and inside this we have to define and we have to assign our values. So what I will do, I will take the import file first, import, and here I will take first our interface. So from, because this kind of data we are going to show, student, and here I will write student interface and import, and from student service data, and I am going to take service. And next what we have to do, we have to define or we have to create a one function here. So first I will take a one variable, like I will write like .NET students, and the type of this will be the student interface array type. So this is the first step. I have taken one variable, and I will take one constructor, and type of this constructor, the variable of this constructor will take the service, and the type of this service, as we have student service. And after this we will take we have to create a one function, and I will take get .NET students, and what it will return, it will return this dot service dot get student from web API dot subscribe. Like through this we get the response subscribe, and this will be the type of this .NET student. It will return this thing, and I'm going to call this method through ng on it. Like services data we call in this manner only, this dot get student details. So that is the next thing. Now go to the app.component.html, and here we will define our data using the for loop. So what I will do, inside the div I will show the data, and in this div I will create a one loop. So this is the way, let item of, and what variable we have taken, we have taken .NET student. and using item dot id and item dot name and item dot gender. We are going to take data like this now. So that is the thing which we have done. Now let's serve it and see on data on the browser. So until it's served, I will explain like what we have done so far. So first of all, we created a one file called student.ts and we have taken the data, like which data we are going to show on the browser. So that was the first step. Then we created a one student detail file. In this detail file, we have created a one exported function called student info, or we have implemented it from in-memory DB service. And under this function, we created a one function called create DB, and we have given our dummy data in this way. And this in-memory DB service is coming from Angular in-memory web API library. So that was the second step. After that, we created a one service, and the command for the service is ng service and the service name. It create two file, and we have worked with the student dot service, and here we created one URL, that this is the URL, and in the constructor we have taken a one variable, and the type of this variable is the HTTP client, and then we created a one function, this get student from web API, and we are going to communicate with this URL using the observable. So this is the observable, and the type of this observable is the student interface, and we are going to get data of from this URL, and the type of the request will be for this is the student interface type of request. So that was the second step. After that, in app.module.ts file, we have taken all the things, and when we were getting like in memory web API module, we have for root, and this student info, like what it say, like it redirect both HTTP and HTTP client calls to in-memory data store that implemented in this in-memory. Like basically this in-memory web API module, it used to communicate between the web API data and to the web API means server data and the response it give to us. So that is the way. And next step, in the app.component.ts, we have created a one function get.student, and we are going to get response using the subscribe, as I explained in the previous tutorial. Like a response we get using the subscribe, and then after getting the response into this variable, like in this variable we have taken the response, so we are printing on the browser like through the ng4 directive. So it's compiled successfully. Now let's see on the browser. So it's not showing the data. Let's see what wrong we did. So let's check it first if it is fine or not. Okay, so we have defined it like the service dot get student from web API dot subscribe, and okay, so basically what we missed, we are not assigning this subscribe response, so we have to assign this to this variable. So again, let's save it and now see on the browser like what it shows. Compiling. So we can see here like it is showing the data like our IDs 1 2 3, name 1, name 2, name 3, male, female, male. So this is the way of showing data using the dummy web API data, like ID for proper so now let's see on the browser, it will show little proper like ID, name, gender. So this is the way of showing the data using the web API in Angular 8. So if you have any question, please comment. Thank you.